again, Ed and Victor, here to talk a little bit of sales for you. Today's topic is those dang customers that are getting bids. You know, those folks that are just, they're just resigned to get bids. They're not buying because we show up with the diamond on our shirt, and they're just not just signing up for everything we've got. They're going to get bids. And one of the things we want to talk about a little bit today is, you know, how do we know how far to take them, how far to push them, you know? We don't want to become that old crazy sales guy that's closing, always be closing.
Always be closing, boiler room style. Let's get this thing done. Let's lock her down. There's no reason you shouldn't sign that contract right now.
What can I do today to make you sign that paper?
What can I do? What can I do?
Sales from the 70s and 60s, right?
That's right.
Today's note, and I love your position on nudge. We got to nudge them enough. We got to bump them along. We got to press them a little bit for a decision.
Right.
Because we know if we leave that house that day, there's a pretty good likelihood, even if we're Brian Wirt, the best salesman in the company, that even if he leaves without some sort of commitment that day, ink on that iPad or some sort of solid commitment, that his closure is going to drop a little bit. Talk a little bit about your kind of status on nudging and how we try to bump them along and ask a few times, right?
Well, let me ask you a question, Ed, and see if you have this number off the top of your head. If we leave in the I'll think about it type of scenarios where they make no decision, I got to go get some extra bids, I'll get back to you. You know, how many close rates what's our close rate for that?
So company-wide, 32% of the folks that call us sign up with us on termite services. They don't bring anybody else out. So if you look at it, 32%, only the Orkin Pro, they go with them. So that leaves 68% of the folks typically get bids. And we know that if we leave that appointment, certainly we have a lot of two-call closes, but most of our closes are first-call closes. So with the two-call closes, we know that the closure rate from the one-call close drops company-wide almost 8% if we walk out of there with some sort of commitment, which is a big gap. So that's what I want to. That's what we want to kind of kick around a little bit. You know, how do we try to prevent them? You know, try to get some sort of commitment that night, and then what do we do if it doesn't happen?
Right. You know, the market has changed. You know, salespeople have changed, and I talk about this a lot because, you know, back in the day, look, sales is always pre-internet and post-internet. Pre-internet, we had the information, the client didn't have the information. Fast forward. Post-internet, clients will look at 10 sources of information. This is according to Google. They will look at 10 sources of information before reaching out to a supplier or vendor, right? So that means they've gone through their customer journey. They've looked for content online. So that means, you know, the Challenger people put it at 57% into the buying cycle. I think Sirius put them at 70 or 80, and then I think, I think it was Forrester put them at 90% into the buying cycle. So let's ask ourselves what that means. That means that they've researched content, they've gone online, they kind of have an idea of pricing, so they know what to expect. So many of these customers are already informed. So when we get there, Ed, it's one of those things where they know and we know what the pricings are going to be. Okay, they're just trying to figure out the gap. We talked in our previous episode about framing pricing early. I think that's important in terms of setting price early, at least a frame, so that when we get to the end, we don't have to hear let me go get another bid, let me get a competitive bid, right? So one of the things I strongly believe in is that people only want to get a second bid when they're not comfortable with the person who's in their house.
Amen.
Because I've been there where I've had somebody come over and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to get 3 bids. I'm going to get 3 bids. And guess what happened? First guy comes in, and man, it's just like he's so detailed oriented. He's asking me questions I haven't even thought about. He's making me think about things. I had one guy, I'll give you an example. We had to put in a new roof. Guy comes in, has a personality of a rock, Ed. Has 0 personality. He's just 0, nothing there. But it didn't matter because he was very type A, matter of fact. No matter what question we threw at him, he would answer it, but then he would also advise us. He almost like didn't even care if he got the sale. We would say, here's what we're thinking. He says, no, you don't want to do that. We're like, well, why? Here's why. And then he would give us the reason. He said, if you're going to spend the money, here's where I would spend it. And then he would tell us, you know, about ridge vents and stuff like that. And we're like, never thought about that, you know? And he kept doing this to us. Now, even if we had gone to get a second bid, I would have compared the second person to the first person.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of person I want to work with, somebody who knows what they're talking about. That's why our salespeople have to know the products. But you got to go in there with this confidence that I can help you. I'm going to solve your problems. I'm going to look at the whole thing holistically. I'm going to solve it for you. I'm going to educate you, and then I'm going to give you some options. And the intent is to close. We don't push, because again, that's old school, but we can nudge.
Yep.
And how do we nudge? We nudge, when we present 3 options, that's a way of nudging. Yep. When you're asking clients, like based on what I've shown you thus far, Is this kind of what you were looking for? Is this what you wanted? Okay, great. Is there anything we're missing? So you're always checking in. So when you get to the end, you're going to ask for the order. Now, if they do say, well, I need to get 2 or 3 bids, let's kind of analyze that. What does that mean, Ed? I got to believe that one reason they do that is because it's finance. Like the price is more than they expect to pay.
Sure.
Not that they won't buy, right? But they're going,
maybe I should look around.
just because, and that's okay. By the way, and we can block those objections. We'll talk about that in another episode. But we can block those pricing objections. But that might be one. The other one, I think, is the fear. I come back to this. The salesperson didn't make them feel comfortable with their expertise. Not comfortable like, hey, how's fishing? Nice boat, nice house. None of that. I'm talking about give me content. Would you agree, Ed, and I'll throw it back to you, is that do you agree that people today, the relationship is a result of how you can help me? So
absolutely.
I don't want to be your friend yet,
yep.
but show me how you can help me first, yep. and then I'll be your friend.
100% agree. I mean, are you demonstrating that you're visibly different than maybe somebody that's been in before, or are you that good and that strong with your story and your solution that they just shut the door on the other folks coming in?
Right.
You know, they just pick up the phone and they call them and they say, hey, you know, cancel those other appointments. So I think there's a lot to that. Again, that nudging piece, you know, that we talk about all the time, bumping them along. You know, you gotta maybe not pressure, certainly not pressure. The line from Jason Sire that I always use all the time is, you know, maybe you pressure the problem, you never pressure the prospect, right? So you say, well, yeah, this is it, but you got to get this fixed. Something's got to happen here. You know, what are you going to do about this? Here's what could happen if you don't fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I think it's something that we've got to get really good at. We've got to get really good at.
I love the way you framed it. So pressure the problem, not the person. So in other words, when you pressure the problem, you're really creating a sense of urgency is what you're doing. That's a beautiful phrase. Who said that?
Jason Sire out of Tennessee, 15-time President's Club winner. You know, so
love his stuff.
But you think about it. I mean, when you dial it down to it, right? You're talking about the problem that is theirs, right? It's their problem.
Right.
It's not their personality. It's not who they are. They've got to do something. Yeah, I get it. It's a lot of money, but you know, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
You know, here's what's going to happen if you don't fix that.
Yeah.
You know, here's what happens 2 years from now. Here's what happens if you wait. You know, so you know, again, pressure, not the customer, not the hard close.
Right.
You know, sign here, three copies, all that crap. It's just pressuring, you know, kind of putting the pressure on the problems. And
so let's sum it up this way: we pressure the problem, we nudge the person.
Perfect.
Let's leave.
Let's get out of here. That's pressure the problem, nudge the person. Because we know if we don't get them to commit, we got an 8% drop in closure, and we don't want to leave there without some sort of commitment. Good enough?
Good enough.
Let's wrap it up. Continue to separate yourself from the competition by being different. Good selling. Ed Donahue, Victor, checking out.